Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. As you will have known if you have watched what I do, I have a playlist regarding hoodoo. Now, I only cover the real basic things in that hoodoo playlist, so the idea is now I want to start bringing a little bit more of each craft. There is a book, it's my book, I wrote it. You are more than willing to access it for free. I don't do it for money. That's not the reason I do it. I do it because what we all learn in life is very different. Our paths in life are very different. The way we are taught things are very different. So please understand, this is from my personal path. This is from the way I was taught and is not fact. It is merely a way in which I know, because I know there are lots of various ways out there, and I am no expert. No one's an expert. We learn every day, you know. So I don't want you to think that's the case. It is not. However, I'm obviously 39-year-old now, and I have been studying many ways from being very young. So I want to share. I just want to share the way in which I learnt. And please, like I say, this is not fact at all. We all have our own ways. We all have our own paths. Nothing is fact. I'm just sort of telling you the way that I was learnt. So the history of hoodoo, people have learnt it in many different ways, but let's get into how I was taught it, of course. Now, before I carry on, I must state, viewer discretion is advised. Some of this information, people may find that it offends them. They may find that it upsets them. I am sorry. Please do not listen from now if you wish not to be offended, if you wish not to go any deeper into this. But viewer discretion is advised. There are some upsetting topics that will come up in here, but I feel it's important to put this out the way I learnt it, just in case someone else learnt it the same way, or someone else wants to know the difference in various countries and stuff. I'm in the UK, obviously, so viewer discretion is advised. Some viewers may find some of these parts disturbing. Okay, so proceed with caution. Conjure is something done in hoodoo, but it comes from the English word conjurer, and that refers to the use of herbs and other ingredients for magical and medicinal purposes. Hoodoo is from South African folklore, is what I was taught anyway. The word itself, obviously hoodoo, we all know that word, but we know voodoo more, but the word hoodoo is used as a noun for naming the system of magic, magical practitioners, etc. Hoodoo trick is an adjective word used, and a verb word is hoodooed. Root workers are known to be called hoodoo doctors, or simply the hoodoo man, the hoodoo woman. This depends on the community and what they sort of initiate them to be called. Other communities use hoodoo as sort of another type of word for witchcraft, basically. And this is why I wanted to get into the hoodoo, because it does lead up into the more advanced witchcraft I'm wanting to do. Every community is very unique and different, so you can find many that will use the word hoodoo for just harmful magic alone, or any magic that's beneficial, spiritual work. You know, hoodoo is a community. It's a community of people. And the way that they practice, it can vary from place to place, just like any other craft. The origin of the word hoodoo is actually not clear as we might think. You can search back, but the actual origin is really unclear. There's speculation. If we research it, it seems to appear in the 19th century, but possibly it will be earlier. But it was called something else. It was hidden. The theory on that is that it was hidden in a way because it was brought in with Christianity, and it was mixed up. So, it probably was older, but it was just hidden. It was called something else. The theory that is widely known and accepted is that the word is African descent, brought to the United States in the 17th and 18th centuries. West African spiritual traditions have contributed to the hoodoo traditions, it is believed. And there's a vast majority of people who do believe that slaves are the reason we have hoodoo, and that they brought it with them. And after slavery was finally over with the African Americans, they moved north, taking the hoodoo traditions along with them. This is why I said it can get a little bit disturbing, guys. It is sad, but we have to understand that this is the reason we have these beautiful things, The tradition of hoodoo concentrates on personal magical power. It's not specific to any forms of theology, so it can be adapted around your own personal beliefs. Hoodoo focuses on tapping into the supernatural forces that are all around us, enabling us to improve our life by gaining aid, power, luck, money, love, career, divination, revenge, health, employment, personal development in life. Magical practices in hoodoo, they sort of involve herbs, oils, crystals, minerals, bodily fluids, candles, just as they do in other things. But in hoodoo, contacting ancestors is extremely important. Also, something else that's very important in hoodoo is reciting the Psalms from the Bible, because it's considered extremely magically effective. The Bible is more considered a talisman and a primary source for magical lore. Harmful hoodoo will consist of performing jinxes, tricks, and crossing. Curative magic is also in hoodoo to counteract, so there's such as like the uncrossing, the breaking of a jinx, the reversing of a jinx, the reversing of an X, turning a trick, which means sending it back to where it came. Voodoo is completely separate from hoodoo. However, the practice say that the traditions of hoodoo can be found rooted in voodoo. This is what shaped hoodoo to what it is. Because voodoo is very sort of religious, but if we take Christianity that tried to outdo it all, and we put the magical workings of voodoo with Christianity, we may come up with hoodoo. It's just one possible idea. So looking at the tradition at hoodoo in this way that I was learnt, hoodoo is more than likely seen as a corruption word of voodoo, but that's speculation actually, it's not fact. And it seems unlikely, but some still say so, even though it's very unlikely that's where it came from. If you take the voodoo doll, and of course it is widely known as this, it's actually more the hoodoo doll, because these dolls were more traditionally main feature of hoodoo more than they were voodoo. Remember, voodoo is a religion and hoodoo is a magical system following. Very, very different. The word voodoo means spirit of God. The existence of God is accepted, and only one God. Below God, there are some other powerful spirits. They're referred to as the Loa, or Loa, it depends how you pronounce it, or the Lo. They're responsible for like everyday activities, so they're similar to our angels, They act as intermediates between creator and people. Voodoo, though, is actually more about healing than anything else. I know that there's much speculation on that as well, isn't there? Like, if you sort of read everything and what's out there, I know that there's a lot that sort of act that it's really bad, and it's actually not, not as bad as what you think. So in voodoo, you will use the Loas, you'll petition them to work in rituals and spell work. And voodoo is very complex, and it's organised in its belief system, very organised. Voodoo itself originated in Haiti via the European slave trade, as more than 1,000, let's be real, more than 15,000 African slaves of different ethnic groups that spoke different languages with so many different beliefs, they brought them all in. This mixing is what led to the development of voodoo. It is important to note this part can be triggering and upsetting for some viewers. If you wish not to listen to any further, please turn back now and turn it off. Slaves were beaten, tortured and starved, sometimes worked to the point of death. They were separated from family, given new names, and the idea was to try and take away the community sense they had of their very lives, stripping them from the roots of their own existence. Voodoo was kept alive as a link to the lost homes in Africa, and practiced only in secret. The Black Code, as it was called, or the Code Noir, in 1685 made it illegal for slaves to congregate in large numbers without supervision, preventing the practices of their beliefs. How disgusting is that, guys? The Black Code also made any religion apart from Catholicism illegally, completely, and voodoo was considered bad and evil and even satanic to some. Voodooists adapted their veneration of the lower by identifying them with many saints in the Catholic religion. This enabled them to continue practicing their beliefs. So take Damballa of the divine snake god. That was the representation of tranquility, harmony. Well, this god was likened to St. Patrick, who was responsible for driving snakes out of Ireland. The Virgin Mary was identified as Ezuli, the lover of love, the sexual self and beauty. Voodoo did not survive in its purest form from the United States. It's very important, partly due to American Christianity that dominated the area, and it did not condone the veneration of idols, and recognises only 2 of the 7 Catholic sacraments. It also did not survive in its purest form because slaves were often then born, obviously, over here, and the African roots and traditions were simply lost through time. But this is how America ended up with an altered version of voodoo and not its original form. The original form may be long lost, I'm afraid. If we look at early hoodoo origins, it played a part that was vital in the role of development of the cultural and ethnic identities of slaves. The practice of traditional African religions largely disappeared during the, I think it was colonial period, but spiritual practices were retained in traditions like hoodoo. Hoodoo provided a practice of control as well as means of comfort, and it existed along the side of Christianity. Hoodoo conjurers were considered very powerful due to their abilities of being able to hex and heal. Traditional African religions had largely been stamped out amongst slaves due to the treatment they received. The practices relating to the manipulations of energy to promote balance and harmony. Obviously, that's what it's all about. As hoodoo developed, as previously mentioned, it adapted to many elements. Moses, Jesus, the devil and God were all identified as great conjurers, due to the abilities they had to change and affect materials through supernatural means. Hoodoo allowed slaves to assert some control over their environment, and it played a role in the slaves' escape. That's very important. Root workers were often cited as facilitators. Common belief was that hoodoo doctors could hoodoo dogs who would go after slaves, causing them to stop and bark at trees that were empty or just completely go the wrong way, enabling them to escape. Any hoodoo doctors on slave plantations were held in high esteem. They were turned to for solutions, help with problems. These abilities were said to come from African origins, and markers indicating they were powerful, such as green eyes, being the 7th child of a 7th child. The existence of ghosts and spirits persisted as part of hoodoo, and graves would be decorated to prevent hauntings and appease ancestors. The return of ancestral spirits was to provide help and advice, but of course evil and good spirits also existed then as they do now. Basically, if they were evil in life, they will be evil in death. They won't change, they will still be the same person. Hoodoo doctors were favoured over other medicinal practitioners, and hoodoo women acted as practitioners, healers and midwives. They were very powerful figures within hoodoo and any community. Many aspects of hoodoo can be traced back to Africa, and it is a tradition that great reverence is paid to ancestors. This has become adapted in many beliefs, just in different ways. The living require protection and guidance from their ancestors, while the ancestors need their memories kept alive and their souls fed through rituals and ceremonies. This is a worship that works both ways. You receive, you give, you get, basically. In contemporary hoodoo circles, ancestor refers to anyone, absolutely anyone, who died, because apparently we are all connected, so all is one. Some say it's only bloodline. It really is a personal choice, that when regarding ancestors, it is a very personal choice. The fact hoodoo emphasizes on ancestral and spiritual guidance is more often cited as proof of the theory that hoodoo derives from West Africa sources filtered through New Orleans. However, it's not just hoodoo. Many African religions venerate their ancestors. The African deities known as Numba, Nala, Ilegwa, Legba, or Ishnu, recognized, like Eshnu, for example. These are all deities from African religions, and Eshnu is recognized as a trickster that you can meet at the crossroads, an opener of the way, and is often confused with the Christian devil, but they are completely different things altogether, just so you know. Magical customs you will find in hoodoo are jinxing, hot-footing, foot trap magic, crossing and uncrossing magic, crossroads magic, that contains the remnants of beliefs of the, I think, if I'm right, Congo and Yoruba, Fon and the Yu people. The oldest form of divination comes from hoodoo. The casting of bones was not voodoo, it came from hoodoo. But obviously today it's rarely used. They did turn to chicken and possum bones, but ancestral bones are no longer used, obviously, because it's illegal to take bones from the grave, as you know. Very illegal. The mojo hand can be associated with the Afro-Caribbean wanga or anga, used in Obeah magic, and it's adapted to be included in hoodoo. African practices, such as the use of hot and spicy foods to produce love, get control of a person or situation, and bring compliance from those who eat it, are also from hoodoo and are used still today in many, many traditions. So as you can see, most hoodoo has African roots, and it's just been adapted to fit the needs of today. Hoodoo can be used to help, but it can also be used to harm. It's spiritual energy, so it's seen as neutral, and it's the decision of the practitioner to decide the end result. That's important. African philosopher and theologian do not view evil as extreme and horrible as Western philosophy does. Evil is seen as a relative term for referring to how an act or action affects a person. In hoodoo, the no harm rule does not apply. To hear such things as "she fixed him" means that the intent will have been to harm or manipulate the person. The practice of hoodoo consists of using oils for magical purposes, roots and minerals, animal parts, personal possessions, bodily fluids. Foot track and footprint magic consists of occult materials to be stepped on. Also working with such things like footprints, socks, shoes, because it has an effective magical link. Crossing, where a person's path will be crossed with a mark, usually drawn in dust or laid with herbs or powders. It is believed that the hurt enters the person through the feet when they walk over the area. Crossroad magic is a place where two roads cross, where magical items can be disposed of and others can be called upon. Mojo bags, which are flannel bags filled with ingredients, usually carried on the person placed in the area that they are needed to do their work. Dolls are also used quite a lot in hoodoo. The hoodoo doll we will get into in another episode, but what I'm trying to state here is that listen to all that comes from hoodoo and went into voodoo, and it now is found in all these practices today. We have a lot to be thankful for, don't we? And I think I'm going to leave this episode here. I don't want to make them too long. The idea is I want you to be able to listen to them and not take all day to actually listen to them as well. But when we come back, we will be looking at New Orleans and voodoo. And we all know the voodoo queen, I'm sure, from New Orleans. I know I do. If not, trust me, it's very interesting. And I want to thank you all for listening, and please understand that this is done with much respect to every culture out there. I mean no harm, no disrespect. But I really wanted to put some truth out there because we have a lot to be grateful for from other traditions and cultures. They've become so important to us now. If we understand now the followings, the paths which we take, just look at all the route, where it comes from. We have a lot to be grateful for. Thank you for listening, and many, many blessings.